let's talk about a skill that's an absolute game changer: emotional control. Now, this isn't about bottling up your anger or pretending you don't feel it. No, it's about mastering your reaction to it. Let's get into it.
You know, it's funny, the philosopher Aristotle was talking about this thousands of years ago, and it's a challenge we're still dealing with, right? I mean, anyone can get angry, that's the easy part. But to be angry at the right time, for the right reason, in just the right amount, well, like he said, that is a true skill. And it's a skill that can literally change your entire life.
So, why is this skill so incredibly important? Well, because letting your anger run wild has a massive cost. It messes with our decisions, it can wreck our relationships, and it just destroys our own peace of mind. And usually, we don't even see the damage until it's already done. And there's actually some solid brain science behind this. When you get angry, your brain literally flips a switch. The logical, reasoning part kind of takes a back seat, and the emotional part just takes over the driver's seat. And that's exactly why those heat-of-the-moment decisions, yeah, they're almost always the wrong ones. I mean, the stakes are they're incredibly high. Just think about it for a second. You can spend years building a relationship, trust, friendship, love, and it can all be shattered in a single moment of rage. One emotional decision, fueled by a feeling that's going to pass, can have consequences that last a lifetime. It's pretty scary when you think about it that way. So, to really get a handle on this, let's dive into a story. It's this fantastic parable about a king who, had all the power in the world, except when it came to his own temper. And the lesson he learns? Well, it changes absolutely everything for him. So, here's our king. Super powerful, incredibly intelligent, but he had this one huge flaw. He had a ridiculously short fuse. The smallest little thing could set him off. And his reactions were, well, they were way over the top, leading to some really harsh consequences for what were honestly tiny mistakes. So one night, his old, wise teacher drops by for a visit. They're sitting down for this big royal dinner. And then something happens, something so small you'd barely even notice it. A tiny fly lands right in the king's soup. Now, for you or me, that's just an annoyance, right? But for this king, oh, that was a major trigger. And just like that, he completely loses it. He just erupts in fury, screaming at this poor servant who just happened to be standing nearby. The servant is just trembling with fear, totally helpless against this tidal wave of anger over a tiny fly. But the wise teacher, who's been watching all of this go down, calmly says, "Your Majesty, the fly did not destroy your peace. Your reaction did." Wow, so simple, but so powerful, right? He doesn't blame the fly. He doesn't blame the servant. He points the finger right where it belongs, at the king's reaction. And then the teacher lays it all out. He explains that real power, true leadership, it's not about ruling over other people. It's about ruling over yourself. I mean, think about it. If you can't even manage your own emotions, how in the world are you supposed to manage a kingdom, or a company, or even just your own life? So the story gives us the why. This is also important. Now, let's get practical and talk about the how. The king's transformation didn't happen overnight. It started with one crucial first step: figuring out what was setting him off. We're talking about identifying your emotional triggers. So, what exactly is an emotional trigger? Well, it's pretty much anything: an event, something someone says, even just a memory that causes an immediate and really intense emotional response. For the king, it was the fly. For us, well, it could be almost anything. Let's run through some really common ones you might recognize. Maybe it's getting criticized at work. Or, a classic one, getting stuck in traffic when you're already late. How about that feeling of being ignored or disrespected? The specific triggers are different for all of us, but that feeling, that sudden rush of emotion, that's something we all know.
So the big question is, how do you figure out what your triggers are? The key is self-reflection. It's about becoming a detective of your own emotions. The next time you feel that wave of anger or frustration starting to build, the goal isn't to just squash it down. The goal is to pause, take a step back, and just observe it. No judgment. Just ask yourself, okay, what just happened right now to make me feel this way? Because once you know what your triggers are, the real work begins. And that's building a totally new habit for how you respond. And listen, this isn't about just gritting your teeth and using willpower. It's about practice. It's about building up your patience muscle, one rep at a time.
This goes right back to what the King's teacher said, right? Patience is a habit. You can't just decide one morning, okay, I'm going to be patient today, and be done with it. It's a skill you have to develop. It's exactly like going to the gym. You don't get strong by lifting a weight once. You have to practice consistently to build that emotional strength. And this practice can really be broken down into a super simple 3-step process. Step 1, identify that you've been triggered. You feel that emotion bubbling up. Step 2, and this is the absolute game changer. Pause, just for a second. Create a little bit of space between the trigger and your impulse to react. And then step 3, you consciously use a calming technique to bring yourself back to center.
So what are these calming techniques? Well, it could be something as simple as taking 3 deep, slow breaths. Seriously, it works. Or maybe it's just physically walking away from the situation for a couple of minutes. It could be meditating, calling a friend event, or putting on some music you love. The whole point is to interrupt that emotional hijack and give your thinking brain a chance to get back online.
And this is precisely the work the King put in. Day after day, he practiced. He learned to spot his triggers, and most importantly, he learned to pause before he exploded. And what happened? Well, his mind got calmer, his thinking became way clearer, he started making better decisions, and as a result, his whole life and his entire kingdom became a much more peaceful place. And that brings us to our final section. Because look, what we're talking about here is so much bigger than just avoiding a few arguments. This is about taking control of your inner world so that you can become the true master of your outer world. After all that practice, the King finally got it. He really understood this profound truth. He realized that true strength isn't about having the power to lash out in anger. True strength is having the power to control yourself. And that right there is the core lesson of everything we've talked about today. When you boil it all down, there are really 2 paths in front of every single one of us. You can live a life run by your temporary emotions, which, let's be honest, almost always leads to chaos and regret. Or you can choose the other path, a life guided by calm, by patience. And that's the path that leads to fulfillment, balance, and real peace. So I want to leave you with this final thought. Your emotions, they're like clouds in the sky. They're natural, they're going to come and go. You can't stop the clouds from appearing. That's just not how it works. The only real question is this: who's in charge of your sky? Are the clouds running the show, or are you?